The fact that our boy Garf, back in the day, smashed his head into a wall to the point that he gave him this scar in order to cover up the past, which was too hard for a kid to handle, I like that. I'm one of those people who, when I see a character design, such as, say, Garfield's, and you look at him and you say, oh, he has a giant cross across his face, you naturally assume probably a battle wound, and we're never going to touch upon it, because truthfully, you don't need to have backstories upon backstories for every little detail in a story. If you do that, it gets rather boring. So you look at a character like him and you say, oh, probably a battle wound, he does seem a little hot-tempered, makes sense that he'd probably injure himself. So you watch the first season, you think nothing of it. You watch the second season, you think nothing of it. You do that for pretty much anything like that. But then when you get to a point like this, where you get that backstory and you see the mother giving a farewell kiss to the head, and then you reflect on what happened at the beginning of this episode, and then you hear the dialogue and it all clicks to a point where you are appreciative that the author, the writer, went the extra mile to give that added bonus. I love it when an author does that, and I love how the episode was directed to start off showing how he got the scar, which I was perfectly content with. I was like, oh, he's a kid with a lot of trauma, he bashed his head in, that's how he got the scar. I don't need anything else. I like that. I was already ready to come up here and praise exactly what I'm doing. And then by the end of the episode, I like that moment all the more. It's the little things that really just bring a character or bring an arc or bring a story section of this to life, and ReZero knocked it out of the park with, once again, another 30-minute episode. I've seen a lot of jokes how White Fox probably hasn't even animated an opening, and honestly, I'd say you're probably right. Truthfully, I hope we never have openings again in ReZero, because the amount of content we get to see without it feeling cut off too soon, giving everyone their time to shine. Like, if this was a normal paced episode, the last 10 minutes would have had to been in next week, and it would have been not as impactful, because then we would have had to cut off Amelia's conversation in her trial short. So it's like, screw the opening, screw the endings, play them throughout the episode, but don't show them, because we gotta see this through and through. I thought the kind of conversation between Garf and Subaru was pretty much everything you could probably want. I wasn't sure the direction they were going to go, because I really wasn't sure what Garf wanted to do in the situation, and I honestly had no idea how Subaru could stop him, because, I mean, if you had Ram going up against him, and obviously that wasn't enough, what are you gonna do? I didn't think Otto and Ram were dead, but at the same time, I was expecting a lot worse than what happened, so I'm glad they didn't end up in a pretty grave situation, because based on the progression we've had so far, you don't want to see a reset here, so it's nice to have all that occur there, and to see the back and forth dialogue where Subaru's really kind of like taking everything he's learned, taking all of his insecurities, how he's overcome them with the help of characters like Amelia and Rem and just the numerous people, Otto and things like that, and to have him throw it right back in a very insecure person's face. And it really does put into perspective, too, when you learn that our boy Garf is only 14 years old, so a lot of his emotional rashness just kind of makes even more sense than it does for someone who lost his parents at a very young age and grew up with this misguided information about a mother who wanted to abandon him, and how, you know, Subaru saying, you want to hate her, you say, I could never hate her, I love her, and it's a very complex situation, and I think they did a great job at not making the viewer say, oh, we're supposed to feel like the mother's in the right, or the mother's in the wrong, Garf's in the right, Garf's in the wrong. It was never about that. They did a great job in a singular episode to make us look at this boy as someone who's scared and afraid, very timid, but lashes out in order to overcome these feelings that he's never actually overcoming. He's just pushing him further and further back in that closet. And the demons are finally coming out, and to see someone like Subaru, who you look at him and say, what the hell is he going to do up against a man who can transform like this? And then to see the necklaces come into play, to see, once again, Puck come into play, seeing all these different things happen that were like, oh, we forgot this and we forgot that. I wonder if this is convenience. I wonder if the author forgot what he was doing. And to see how someone like Subaru was able to go up against something as ferocious as Garfield going haywire when he doesn't have lasagna, and to see him transform him back down to a human, so it's more of a human-on-human interaction, and to see the adrenaline that must have been pumping through Subaru in order to be able to deal with a punch like that and not fall down. Sure, he lost a tooth, but I mean, that adrenaline was what was keeping him on his knees there, because otherwise he would have been fallen over without much struggle. But I think one of the most shocking aspects about that fight is finally having something with the witch factor come into play, and to see it finally unlock, which you knew eventually it would have to, especially with all the conversations we had in the first half with now how many witches. Like, eventually the witch factor has to activate with what he has. I mean, You can't go from Beetlejuice here talking about how crazy this boy is and not have something like that, even though we don't have like 20 million hands coming out. To see I don't think many people would have saw that coming. I mean, eventually, I was always assuming something in terms of like what Beetlejuice was kind of doing back in the day would have to happen, but I wasn't expecting it in this particular moment, even though the moment prior where you get some sort of weird anomaly occurring, you're like, okay, is his like darkness fog thing more powerful now? Is he going to reuse that? And then you just see the sucker punch and I'm like, hot damn. Clearly he's going to have to train a lot with that if one use of it is going to almost knock him out. But still, it was nice to see how an action sequence was driven by the dialogue first and foremost, while also getting our minds racing about what Subaru's abilities will be in the coming days, if not the coming years, and things like that. So I really like that. I like the emotional trauma and how it doesn't just simply end with Subaru saying this is how you should feel. It ends with both Subaru and Garf on the woman that they love's lap, getting very different interactions, one a pat on the head, one a throw to the ground because you're making my legs numb, but seeing how he actually had to face a trial himself and overcome those paths. I really like that because I think anytime you get those emotional goodbyes, whether it's Subaru in the first half of season 2 where he gets to see his parents, even if they weren't real, that goodbye to him meant everything, knowing that he's probably never going to see his family again. For someone like Garf, actually seeing the truth without any sort of barriers, without any blurriness, seeing what his mother was actually going to do, even knowing that she wasn't going to live, because we know the inevitable was going to happen, but seeing how she was going after the father, not to find happiness, but to bring the family together. It's a pretty painful thing, but I think once again with that past aura where it's very beautiful, it looks like a very natural and peaceful scene, even though you know bad things are going to happen. I think it was a great way to close it, all things considered, and really bring an episode that could have been something that you just brush aside as an angry boy who's edgy and blah blah blah, which a lot of times in a show like this is how you would feel, because you would have like 10 minutes to do what we just did in 30 minutes while combining all the previous actions that we know of Garf. I love that about a show like ReZero, that it knows that, like, especially the team behind this, knows that the material that was written, there was no way to trim it down, and even if they already have trimmed it down, they knew damn well we need half-hour episodes one way or another, which honestly makes me even more happy that this was a split core, because you know they need the time to refine the beautiful direction that this season has taken. And I mean, just to see even some of the other moments I really like, questioning why did Subaru originally leave Amelia, I was kind of thinking to myself that maybe he did it willingly because he wanted her to snap, but seeing how he actually spent the entire night engraving messages and words of encouragement to Amelia in the tomb so that she would feel good, because he didn't know the conversation prior in last week's episode was going to happen. He didn't know that he was blossoming a relationship here, which was pretty adorable, that Emil's like, hey, you know, let's talk about this afterwards, and he starts blushing. But it's great to see that there was a reason for his actions, and because of that, not only did he give her that extra bump of encouragement, which she didn't need at this point, but it was nice to see, understanding that this wasn't happening for random reasons. There's a reason he broke that promise, and I'm sure he had every intention of coming back before dawn, so she didn't wake up and see it, but unfortunately, you know, he looks like he engraved quite a few things, which shows how much he cares for her. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation, once again, about the witches here, right? Because we have two witches, all things considered. One in present and one in the past, kind of locked away, very jealous that Subaru likes other people more than her. So I'm curious if there's going to be the speculation from the community, because by saying like the witch's daughter, you would naturally say, oh, is she the daughter of her? Is Wicked Witch of the West here? Like, what's going on? But I'm still unsure, because I don't know where I want to put my money on who Amelia actually is, because we know she came from the past, but at the same time, is she literally just a normal girl who got roped into this situation, or is she actually more important with her birthline? It's very hard to say, but I think that conversation is going to be quite memorable for sure, and I'm really excited to see where they're going to take it. But overall, another compelling episode. Season 2 continues to knock it out of the park and already surpassed the first half of Season 2, and that was already a masterpiece in the making. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, definitely your theories down below. What did you think, and where do you think it might go with next week's conversation? That is sure to be a rather spicy. Let me know down below. You like the video? Obviously leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.